Sit!
Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss Dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
And welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast.
Dude, take two sounded just as bad as take one. What happened there?
I did a guest. I was a guest host on the DTC podcast. Check that out. My good friend Izzy Elkafast. I've been talking, and then we've had like massive show delays here with like our recording equipment. So
Technical difficulties.
I've been talking for 2 hours nonstop, literally now.
Basically.
No, like literally nonstop, 2 hours. So
we took a break to watch Letterkenny.
We were talking during Leonard.
That's true. We were.
So I'm Rich Dotson. He's Matt O'Hara.
Hey.
And he's Garret Price.
How's it going?
We're back here. We are the Jinxers. We are the bad luckers. We are the mother. We're not good guys. We're bad guys because we were like, wow, what a season. Like, we've had no major injuries up to this point. Like, what a great
Other
year.
than Javonte.
And other than Javonte. And you know what? Let's move Breece Hall up to our running back 1-1 overall in Dynasty. Let's do this.
That's called a double whammy, I think. Isn't it?
In a matter of days, it's all collapsed.
Gone forever.
We've lost a handful of players, of quality players, and our Dynasty 1-1 running back is now hurt. So we're going to jump into all of this, break it down, talk about Week 7. Where do we go here with our Dynasty teams? Where are the buys? Where are the sells? Where are the windows? Let's get into it. But before we do, we got to tell you about our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is where the action is. Even when your team is losing, you have an opportunity to win. Come out on top where it matters most, and that's your wallet or your purse or your satchel or your safe, wherever you want to do.
Satchels for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously that was an easy.
Fanny pack. Did you mention that one? That's a winner too.
I mean, it's kind of a satchel. You just wear it. It's a satchel around your waist.
Satchel for your
It's a
like
waist
a belt.
satchel. Hey, is that your fanny pack? No, that's my waist satchel. When you go to Prize Picks, use the promo code NERDS, and they're going to give you 100% instant deposit match on your deposit. You got to use that promo code NERDS. It's the best legal way to play player props. You pick 2 to 5 players, over, under projections, win 10 times your entry. It's fantastic. You could mix. It's like mixed martial arts, but the martial arts are sports, so you can mix the sports.
Little Thursday night action. Tom Brady, 280.5 yards right now.
Under,
right?
Under.
Going against Baltimore.
Baltimore's their secondary is a mess.
Stinks. Yeah.
But it's
Secondary-
Thursday night. They're old.
Yeah. Old people don't recover
They
quickly.
don't recover as quickly.
He's older than me.
I know. I'm almost as old as him. I don't recover quickly. I just moved house this past weekend. My body hurts right
I
now.
just talked for 2 hours straight. Look at me now, suffering succotash.
Yeah, I'll take the under.
Yeah, I'll take the under too.
Take the under there.
And that's what Prize Picks is. I mean, it's loaded with over-unders. It's just you versus the app, right? Like, hey, will Tom Brady throw for more than 280 yards?
Absolutely.
It's a yes or no question. If you pick the yes 3 times in a row, 5 times in a row, you're winning 10 times your entry. You put $10 in
The
there.
yes is right.
And the yes is right.
You can't just pick yes and then you're good to go.
Listen, I'm not Albert Einstein, but if I do the math and you put in $10, you're walking away with a cool hundo. Yeah, that's
go.
Abraham Lincoln in your pocket. Oh yeah, big time. So Prize Picks, check it out. Promo code NERDS. And it's not, we have the World Series going on. We have MMA. We have basketball kicking off. So college football.
Hockey
you can take
even.
Hockey. You can take all these sports, mix them together, and find a perfect combination of player props for you to come out and win some coin.
Josh Jacobs, 83.5 yards.
Over. Smash that.
If it was touchdowns, I would take the over. If it was 83.5.
Who are they playing?
New Orleans.
They traditionally have a decent run defense.
They do.
Traditionally, nobody's ever done what Josh Jacobs done over the last 5 years, which is score like all these points, like over 30 points as a running back. It's insane. The guy's on fire in fuego.
I'm not sure about your
Jacobs.
facts, but yes.
I got facts. I think I wrote down for the show. There's something about Josh Jacobs, and he has
Save it for the show.
Save it.
76.5 for Kenneth Walker.
Who they got?
over.
They are playing the G-Men.
Ooh, over.
New York G-Men.
Yeah,
I'm going to take the under.
You're going to take the under.
I'm going to take the under.
Well, you're wrong more than you're right, so it doesn't shock me whatsoever. Yep. And that's what it is.
Yep.
Prize Picks. Use that promo code NERDS. Hook it up. Get in there. You know, Use that promo code. You get some free cash. You support our sponsors. It all works out for the best of us. Now, let's dive into Week 7 injuries. And let's start at the top where it hurts the most. Yes, we're talking about your midsection, Breece Hall. And he tore his ACL with a little MCL injury on top, too. So guess what? He's not coming back in 2022.
So wait, what happened? Explain this again.
Breece Hall?
MCL also?
And it's an MCL injury. He didn't tear it. But there is an MCL injury.
Okay.
It's like a
Because my the initial thing that I read, it was a very clean ACL, and that was all that it was. But now all of a sudden they're piling this MCL injury on top of me.
It's not a tear like it is for the ACL.
It's not ripped up,
but it is
slightly
a boo-boo.
A little bit torn up.
But it's a clean tear, so it's good. I mean, it's almost as good as it could be.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
No, I mean, it could be a lot better. He could have not torn his ACL, and that would have been better.
For the situation at hand, Matthew.
Oh, all right.
I mean, it's already torn. Like that, you've already been dumped.
Ripped,
like, there's no going back.
Ripped, torn.
It's like you've been dumped, and like they leave you behind, like, I don't know,
a fortune,
a book of,
a Kama Sutra.
Ooh.
I would rather have a fortune.
I would definitely rather have the fortune.
I mean, I guess
that's the best dumping scenario. Like, I'm leaving you, but I'm leaving you with a lot of money.
Yeah, but what if I dumped you?
Did you leave me with a lot of money?
No, I left you with a Kama Sutra book.
Well, that's worst case scenario.
I call this the flying eagle. Thank you.
You need practice.
So with Breece Hall, ACL injury, MCL injury. Before we talk about what's behind him and obviously the trade and whatnot, we moved him up to our dynasty running back 1-1.
Yeah,
correct.
How far are you guys moving down? Because
you guys did actually. I had not yet moved him to my 1-1. I was reluctant.
Oh, that's right. You had him in the top 3 though.
I did have him in top 3. He was no hindsight here.
Told you guys.
There's the tape.
I knew he was going to get hurt.
Prove it. You guys are the ones that jinxed him, not me.
Or maybe you did jinx him by not moving to 1-1, getting the proper respect.
Lack of faith.
Yeah.
Shun the non-believer.
Where he should have been like playing his feet right. He's like, oh, what did I do to Matt?
That would have been me being injured. As the non-believer, I should be injured myself, which I am not.
Right,
now I just jinxed myself. By the way, I won't be here next week because I'll be injured.
Yeah,
he jinxed.
You're gonna throw your back
He jinxed
out.
Mike Williams.
Man,
we'll get to
that.
Bring that up.
All that being said, he's moved one spot for me. I have now put Jonathan Taylor back above him. That's it.
Where he was supposed to be, and and Saquon Barkley is there. He just basically didn't move for me. I mean, the injury doesn't. It's not going to affect him long term. So I don't see why he should be moved down all that drastically.
Yeah, I moved him down just one spot. Jonathan Taylor's going to move him. And there's still, Saquon, I understand what you're saying there. I'm just going to take the age as well. Both are dealing with previous ACL injuries.
Have you seen how good that Saquon looks?
Oh, he looks so good.
Looking really good. But it's a 4-year difference.
That's a big thing.
Yeah.
Just give me that hashtag.
No, I
2
understand mathematics and the years and all that kind of good stuff.
I mean, 4 years, that's pretty much 50% of your lifetime of
but it is
fantasy football usage.
It's a war of nutrition. And right now, Saquon is eating his bananas and his salads, and he's out there.
Eat the good stuff. I literally had this conversation with my son today. It's funny because it was spinach, and he's like, I don't like spinach. And I'm like, spinach is good. I was like, listen, if it's green, it's good for you. And he looks at me, he's like, is diarrhea good for you?
Kids.
I would have gone with like Mountain Dew or mint chocolate chip ice cream or something like that. But diarrhea, sure.
My snap response was, if it's green, of course it is for you. I just told you if it's green, it's good for you.
Now listen to your father.
Eating nothing but green
Smack
Skittles.
the diarrhea out of you, son. What's going on around here? So for much, I mean, it shouldn't move much. If there's any window, like, again, we talk about all the time, what happens with injuries in Dynasty Fantasy Football is it opens windows, right?
No, there's definitely going to be opportunities. There's going to be people that were, either just traded for Breece Hall because he was starting to look really good and they're contenders and might look to offload them. Or there's people that are just ready to bail just because he's injured and they think this is the bottom dropping out. I want to get out while I can.
Izzy Alcafast said that he put a poll out right before we did the show, and he said, hey, what's the highest pick you give up? And people were saying to give up 1-2. They give up Breece Hall for 1-2, 1-3, 1-4.
So basically everybody but Bijan.
Right around there. And even some of them were 1-1.
And that makes sense, especially with the conversation we had, was it last week or the week before, about Bijan coming in and immediately being 1-1.
He will be my 1-1. Because he's like, well, where will Breece Hall be for you at the opening day of 2023? I was like, best would be 1-3 the best would be 1-2 because Bijan would be my 1-1 going into the year. And then it's down to him or Jonathan Taylor. And then we'll get a conversation. I was like, I'd really like to know what the conversation piece would be if Kenneth Walker stays on the trajectory he's on right now and he just dominates for the rest of the year. Where would Kenneth Walker be in this conversation? Because for most people, if Kenneth Walker continues to proceed how he's proceeding, then he will be ranked higher and drafted higher in startups than Breece Hall. It will be. People.
If he's putting up 160 yards a game and just wrecking the league, absolutely,
and rightfully so. So it's just a couple spots for me. But the funny thing was, so if you have 1-2, if you have 1-3, you have 1-4, and anytime this opens opportunity to get Breece Hall, I would make that move. That's a good move because, like we were talking about on this show, was neither of them are playing. That draft pick's not playing yet,
correct?
Right?
Right.
So why move him down for that pick if neither of them on your roster? He's going to be 22 years old when he enters the season next year.
Well, and he's already shown that consistently, week after week, he was awesome in the running game, awesome in the receiving game. They were leaning on him, giving him more and more work every week. Like he's already, I get it that it was only, a 7-week sample size, which isn't huge, but that's half a season. I mean, he's basically shown for half a season that he can be a stud. So
Absolutely.
That was enough of a sample size for me to say, I would rather take the known commodity in the known situation that in theory could be improving even. They have some draft picks and some draft capital to hopefully even improve that offense some. Then the unknown of, even though I love this class and there's a lot of pieces I really like, I would rather have the known commodity.
And that was going to be my exact point. So I'm not going to beat I'm not going to beat a dead horse, but you're basically getting a red shirt type of season right now. That's what you got to kind of look at the rest of the season. But you've seen a glimpse of him in the NFL playing against NFL defenses. There's no more projection. Everything from next year's draft class is going to be a projection. We think it will work out for X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. We're going to start every single sentence that way. I think this guy is going to work out, or at least we should be thinking that way. So Breece Hall, we know it's a known, like you were saying. So we can move on. But I would hammer at it. I would keep finding windows opportunity to possibly get him. Obviously, if the team's not a contender, good luck trying to get him. But even this offseason, at some point, if you lock up 1-2 to 1-5, if you could throw that pick at that owner for Breece Hall, I would do that. I would try to get Breece Hall off of the player, the owner that has him. Because I would still take, again, we're way too early in the process, and Garrett, you know better than I, but Jahmyr Gibbs or Breece Hall.
At this point, I would take Hall.
Jordan Addison or Jackson Smith and Jigba or Breece Hall.
Breece Hall.
Yeah, so it's an easy choice outside of Bijan. So that's what I would do as well. I was kind of surprised. There's a league that I am in with the team that had the 1-1 this year and took Breece Hall is now a contender. They're in they're in the 4th spot right now. Now without Breece Hall, I don't know if they'll be able to keep that spot. I offered him Dameon Pierce in a 1st for Breece Hall just to see. He snapped no. I was expecting a counter. I honestly went into that deal thinking it could possibly get done for how good Dameon Pierce has looked with the 1st on top of it, and it was a no. But those are kind of offers I'm trying to send out there now for Breece Hall. I wouldn't try and tack him with, what if I give you J.K. Dobbins, or something like I would try and be aggressive with this because you have an opportunity to get a top 3 young Dynasty Fantasy Football running back, and those are Dynasty Gold.
I know you're a huge Kenneth Walker guy. Kenneth Walker or Breece Hall? Who'd you rather have?
I would trade Breece Hall straight up for Kenneth Walker right now.
So you'd rather have Breece?
If I'm a contender.
He's saying he would.
You'd rather have Kenneth as a contender?
If I'm a contender right now, I would.
What if you're not a contender?
I would probably just stick with Breece at this point. Because I feel like it's a mutual, it's a fair trade. And me and Izzy went through this. If you listen to his show, you can hear my answers as well. But he went through. He's like, okay, if you're a contender or not contender, he went through those top guys. He's like, DeAndre Swift or Breece Hall. And I said, if I'm a contender, I'll take Swift now. If not, keep Breece. And we kind of went through all those guys. Saquon, I said the same thing. I was like, Saquon, if I'm a contender, easily give me Saquon. If not, I'd rather just stick with Breece Hall. So for me, Kenneth Walker fell in that line. I was like, easily give me Kenneth Walker because I'm not losing any age or anything, and I'm still getting a player with a lot of upside. And obviously, I'm a massive Kenneth Walker fan. I sit here and pound the table like he was my 1-2. And I said, hey, I have Kenneth Walker closer to Breece Hall than I have Garrett Wilson closer to Kenneth Walker.
Yep.
So for me, that it's a little easier for me to take Kenneth Walker for Breece Hall straight up right now. I'd have no problem doing it. I won't even feel bad about it because if Kenneth Walker again keeps playing at this level, then you got an equal turn regardless. It doesn't matter how good Breece Hall is, because Kenneth Walker, if he plays like this, is in the Jonathan Taylor realm anyways.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah, you're putting up those numbers.
Youth is king for king running back. So get a guy on his first contract that's dynasty gold as well. So Breece Hall, and there's opportunities go out there. Obviously, I would take those moments to go get him, or maybe there's a possibility that if you are a contender, you shouldn't be afraid to sell Breece Hall at the same time to try and go for that ship, because that is also very important. Like, you can't let that window close on you as well, because you don't know when it's coming again. I was telling Izzy, because Izzy's like, I wouldn't mortgage the future for a guy like Breece Hall to win a ship. And I was like, I would, because for the same reason where you went into this, just imagine the year next year, or say it was this year, and you knew the production you were going to get. You had Javonte Williams and Breece Hall. You're like, hey, my running back's the best running back stable in the league. I'm winning the ship. And they both get hurt. Like, just be good, have a good roster. You know how those injury cards are going to play out.
Right.
And that window could close like that. And you always have to go for the title. So I'm not saying get bent over for Breece Hall, but like Kenneth Walker, Saquon Barkley, DeAndre Swift, if there's opportunities out there to get those guys to help you propel to that championship, I would do that and kind of take a slight L in the process.
So the one thing I'll kind of not really fight you about, but
put up your dukes
with Kenneth Walker, he's not catching many passes. So I mean, that I think you're going to be missing that piece of your offensive, your PPR little cheap points that you're getting from Breece Hall. You're not really getting those from Kenneth Walker, and he's on a tear right now and looks great. But what happens if there's like a stouter defense that he goes up against, and maybe he doesn't produce that 168 yard
too much speed to the outside, my friend. Too much speed to
the
the outside.
The NFL is filled with
fastest recorded run of the NFL season, Kenneth Walker, this week.
There you go.
Just letting you know.
Right before that, it was Breece, though, wasn't it? Like the week before, it was Breece Hall that rate.
Yeah,
then he tore his ACL.
I mean, there was always the big question about Kenneth Walker was his pass catching ability.
That's always been one of the biggest things.
But he's shown it so far. I mean, he can do it. It's how it's going to be used.
He can do it, but he just isn't being used. I mean, I think it was 19 catches for Breece Hall already, and Kenneth Walker's only on 8. So, I mean, it's going to be, you're going to have a little bit of a drop off in the PPR kind of aspect of it. So, I don't know.
And this is only if I'm a contender, right? Like, right. Otherwise, let me make this clear. If I am not a contender, I'm just holding Breece. Mm-hmm. But if I'm a contender, these are the guys I'm looking at: Kenneth Walker, Saquon Barkley's, DeAndre Swift's. Can I get some guys plus? And honestly, like, I'm drawing a firm line because he was like, Joe Mixon. I was like, no. Like some of these older running backs, like, just no. At some point, you just have to take the road and say, hey, I'm just going after a different running back altogether. And I have a couple guys, like one of my buys of the week is a running back that I actually just traded for, and I think it's a great buy in Dynasty. Mm-hmm. So now the flip side of the Breece Hall injury, let's talk about Michael Carter. And of course, James Robinson gets traded to the Jets. I was trying to think, like, for me, before the season, I was pounding the table. You got to sell Cam Akers. You got to sell James Robinson. So far it looks like I was right in that category. And because, the Achilles.
On Akers.
Okay. Well, I mean, James Robinson has slowly been faded out of the Jacksonville offense.
He's been very faded. He's all the way to a new team.
But even before the trade, they were fading him out slowly. They send him to they send him to New York. And listen, James Robinson, success story for me back in the NFL. And I don't think he's a bad NFL running back. I don't think he's a quality fantasy football running back. Let me make that clear. Like, I think he's the asset of the team, but I think he's Deontay Foreman. I think he's Latavius Murray. I think he's one of those guys that's like, yeah, he can go in there and play the role he needs to play for an NFL offense. But, I mean, he doesn't worry me about anything here with Michael Carter. I think Michael Carter's going to get 70% of the usage. I think Michael Carter, if you look back going into the season before the NFL draft, people were if you look at Michael Carter in Dynasty ranks and overall ADP where he was before they drafted Breece Hall, he started to see a very good climb there in overall because what he showed us last year on tape, his missed tackles usage, his breaking tackles usage. He's a very good quality running back, probably one of the top backup running backs in the league.
I don't think he's a bad running back, but I think it's very telling how quickly they went out and got themselves another running back. Like, and it wasn't just a, here's a third string guy. Like, this is a player that was one of the top running backs 2 seasons in a row on points per game basis, and was playing well up until these past couple of weeks when Travis Etienne started taking the lead role and whatnot. He was playing very well as well. So I don't know. I I think this week he'll get 70% just because James Robinson's got to get used to the offense and that kind of stuff. But I think for the rest of the season, I think they strategically got him as a guy that only has 1 year left on his deal, will then be a free agent. I think it's the perfect like hand and glove fit, more of the physical bruising back, and then Carter more of the receiving back.
I think it was just, for me, I look at it as they went out, they're like doing their due diligence. They probably called the Browns about Kareem Hunt, and they're like, rumors are Browns want a 4th round pick for Kareem Hunt. Like, okay, 4th round pick, okay. And they feel like they're contenders with their record. And then they call Jacksonville and they're like, dude, give us a 6th and we'll give you back a 7th. And James Robinson like, oh, okay. So you're just going to give him to us? Like, yeah, so give us a deal. I think it was a good deal for them. I think he works with Michael Carter, but I do think maybe it's not 70, say it's 60%. I think Michael Carter sees the more workload, and I think he's even more fantasy football efficient. And I don't think Michael Carter needs a workload to be like 50-50 to be fantasy football relevant. I think he will be the biggest producer in this offense. Now, granted, they did lose their left tackle as well, but Michael Carter is going to be much more dynamic in the passing game. So I think Michael Carter is going to give you an opportunity to propel himself into your starting lineup in fantasy football. I don't think James Robinson, for me, he doesn't worry me. Again, he doesn't worry me just as much as I wasn't worried about him and Travis Etienne. Because remember, I had Travis Etienne when we did our preseason show, when we talked top 12 running backs, I had Travis Etienne in there because I loved his explosiveness in his offense. And what's really crazy about Etienne, like even last week, they haven't really fully dove into his passing game yet. Like they're not really utilizing him as a whole in the passing game.
I think they tried early on in the season. He made some pretty bad drops and stuff like that. And maybe they pull a little bit of that off of him.
Taking a little bit off there? Because if that door opens up, look out.
That'd be huge.
Look out.
I mean, that would be. He's a space player, and that's where he would really be able to explode and
with that acceleration that he has,
and
just
really
top
break off
elite.
break off some huge plays.
So you're worried? You think James Robinson's going to hinder the situation a little bit more, and not be as clear for Michael Carter?
I think both are going to be very frustrating for Dynasty. I think we're going to see close to a 50-50 total touches split where Michael Carter gets more of the receiving work, but I think James Robinson is going to get 10 to 13 carries a game and be annoying enough that hopefully you'll be able to put one of them in your flex, but you're never going to feel great about it.
Okay. I see it, I think, similar to you, but also I think that Michael Carter will still have standalone value. So I think I see him a little bit more productive than you see him. But, I mean, all you have to do is look back at Michael Carter's past. I mean, he had Javonte that he was splitting carries at UNC in college. And I think James Robinson and him have a similar, I guess, physicality to them, and they're both bigger backs, and I think they complement Michael Carter well. But Michael Carter, I do think is going to break off some explosive plays. I don't think he's not as explosive as an ETN, but I do see them as, I guess not. They're not exactly the same, but just like James Robinson and Javonte aren't exactly the same, but they're similar type of players. I think Michael Carter operates a little bit better in space and can make some people miss and do some things and get to the outside a little bit better, where James Robinson is probably better suited, especially right now coming off this injury, being in between the tackles banger. And if he gets outside, we've seen him get outside and make some long plays. Make some long plays, but I think he is going to be James Robinson was brought in to complement, I think, Michael Carter and kind of keep him fresh and be that battering ram where Michael Carter isn't going to be a guy that's running between the tackles and trying to smash into people. He's the guy that wants to get to the outside. So I think there's room for both of them. I think Michael Carter is going to be the more valuable one down the stretch here.
So as a contender, he might be a good guy to go out there and trade for. Like if you can get
he might
Michael
because
Carter.
his value's a little bit depressed with Robinson coming in.
Right.
I think people were excited about him being like the guy.
I think it was like a second long.
Yeah.
Where people were like excited, and then the James Robinson trade and everyone.
But I would agree. If I had to pick one to score more points, I would pick Michael Carter.
I think Michael Carter is a very good chance to finish the season as a running back too now.
I think there's a chance, yeah.
And I would say this
from
again,
this point on.
I think if there's any window whatsoever that opens up for you to acquire anything for James Robinson, I would recommend personally from Rich Dotson that you take what you can get, whether it be
when you say anything, specify what you mean.
I mean a third round pick. Like
I would rather James Robinson at that point because he's going to be a free agent next year.
Yeah, but you say that though. Next year's free agents class at running back is probably the deepest we've ever seen whatsoever.
Yeah.
And then you include that on top of a very deep running back class as well.
It's a 3rd round pick. I mean, what are you going to get for a 3rd round pick?
Greg Dulcich, Daniel Bellinger, Kate Otten. Like, you tell me you wouldn't have Greg Dulcich, then
if you guarantee me Greg Dulcich, sure. But
we're talking about deep class.
What's 1 out of 12?
It's a deep class, though. There's always those guys. There'll be somebody in the 3rd down we like.
Yeah, for 100%. I would rather have James Robinson. Give me the known commodity.
I don't think there's room for James Robinson in the future very soon. Again, I think that Achilles injury is, again, the Achilles heel to these players. Like, we've never... If you're excited about Deontay Foreman, who's the best running back we've ever seen come back from Achilles, which took forever to do, then yeah, be excited. But I don't think James Robinson's ever... I think he's a roster clogger. You know what I mean? Like, you can get James Robinson and Latavius Murray. You get James Robinson and Deontay Foreman. You can find these guys for practically free.
I get you. You've never liked James Robinson. I think that's the difference. I've always liked James Robinson. I think he's more talented than.
If it wasn't for the Achilles, he looked fantastic going to that. Yeah. And it's just
he looked fantastic the first 3 games. I mean,
Cam Akers looked good at points and they tore his Achilles, and he was super young, and I was like, I'm done. Like, I'm out officially. Like, what can I get? So for me, a 3rd round pick. Then it gives me 2 3rd round picks, and maybe I can take those 2 3rd round picks and package them with the backup in the 2nd and get a good quality player. I don't think James Robinson will ever hold championship standalone value again, and that's all that matters to me. Like, I'm not looking for maybe something happens where you can get a 2nd for him at some point, but I highly doubt it. So I think a 3rd's probably some of the best you can get, and maybe something happens with the Jets. It opens up a little bit more. I don't know.
Yeah.
But for me, and that's fine that you love him, he's a hard sell. A hard sell. And I don't want to miss that window. Like, the Cam Akers, like, if you didn't take that advice, like we were preaching all summer, and then in the beginning of the year, like, hey, the season's about to start, get out from Cam Akers, you missed that window. Like, now what are you going to get for Cam Akers?
Oh, yeah, nothing.
You're like, so I'd rather have the 3rd.
I'm with you.
I don't think James Robinson's too far behind Cam Akers, though, is what I'm trying to say.
I think we've just seen him already show this year that he's looked better than Cam Akers.
He's been efficient, but he hasn't been explosive. I mean, he's had a couple big runs, and that's been it. Like, his yards per carry besides those couple big runs that offset it, like, have not been.
But I think that's what explosive means. Can they make big runs? And he has.
Okay, I guess that's fair. That's fair. It's fair. You know what I mean?
I'm just saying a 3rd round pick.
Yeah,
I'm just saying a 3rd round pick rarely returns good value.
And I agree.
I'd rather just have a player that I like.
3rd round picks are almost nothing to me as well. Like, I don't hold those in high regards. I just know
if it was a 2nd, I would sell.
That I can get. I usually can find a player that I could stash on my roster that might even be somebody I love, but like, it gives me that opportunity. Again, like, there's always usually the tight end that you usually find. That's why I use the Bellinger, the Ottens, and Dulcich, and all those guys pan out. Like, obviously,
so far
it's easy to say that it panned out now, but you know what I mean. I'd rather have that upside. Or just have the extra 2 3rds, because when you throw them in trades, they look a little better.
Sure.
Hey, I'll give you 2 3rds and a 2nd. It's more ammo in the gun. It's more liquid assets that I can have on my roster compared to a guy like James Robinson. And again, James Robinson, I'm not saying he's not even somebody you can have on your roster. It's just, I think you could find James Robinsons for much cheaper than a 3rd, right? Like, if you want Latavius Murray, you can get Latavius Murray most likely for less than a 3rd.
Yeah, 4th or 5th.
And my buy of the week, my buy of the week, I just traded today for a 3rd and a 4th.
We'll talk about it. That's good value. I like that.
So it's like, it's that I can move differently.
Yeah.
I have a very fluid.
I'm curious.
asset.
I'm going to put a poll out. I'm curious what the community feels like. Would you rather have a 3rd or would you rather have James Robinson? I'm curious.
2023 or 3rd. Yeah, put that poll out there. I'd like to see the results. We'll check it. We'll get the results on the Nerd Herd show and kind of see where we're at. So, outside of that, we talked about Mike Williams, high ankle sprain, will miss significant time.
Look, I mean, they're on bye this week, so that's at least the way he was going to be out either way. And
it's 2 to 4 weeks.
It's usually 2 to 4 weeks. So we'll see. I mean, he'll probably miss, probably 3. I would imagine he's going to miss like 3 weeks of action, like of actual action, and that'll be 4 weeks from now.
I'm surprised he didn't break it.
That looked horrible. I was happy it wasn't a knee. I was happy it wasn't broken. I was happy there wasn't a bone sticking out.
Goodness.
That was nasty, man. So hopefully he can get back. And hopefully he takes enough time to get back and be effective when he gets back. Because remember last year, rushed back kind of from that knee injury wasn't the same basically the whole rest of the year until like towards the end. He
like
started
a 4-week window there where after he came back that he was inefficient.
Correct. Yeah. So hopefully when he comes back, he's fully healthy and he waits till he's fully healthy to come back.
Same thing with David Njoku. Put it on top of there. The 2 replacements you're looking at would be Josh Palmer
for Mike Williams
for the Chargers, and he's looked good. We talked about him in the preseason this year. Like if you want like a dynasty wide receiver to stash, that's pretty affordable. Like Josh Palmer is a great add to your roster.
If Donald Parham comes back, he was concussed this past week. If he comes back, he might pick up some of that slack too, just because he's so tall.
Sure,
he's a big time red zone threat and stuff like that. So he might get a little bump in targets as well.
It's been a bummer for Mike Williams because I feel like there's been so many moments where like he's almost become like that guy that we want him to be. It seems like something always happens.
It's okay, baby. I'll be here to hold you up no matter what.
You ain't going nowhere.
I'm right here for you. I don't care how many times you fall. I'll pick you up.
That's right.
For Njoku with Harrison Bryant coming in, he will because they also lost. I mean, Pharaoh Brown might be back this week, but he's operated as the number 2 weapon in that offense for Cleveland. So he's the number 2 target. They're bringing Harrison Bryant. They'll probably use him the same way that they used Njoku. I mean, you can see it this week. They did a shuttle pass at the for trying to get a first down. They did it with Njoku. It worked. They did it with Harrison Bryant. Didn't work. The difference, obviously, between Harrison Bryant and Njoku is Njoku's really good with the ball in his hands, and Harrison Bryant is
more of a possession guy.
Is a possession guy.
He's a catch and fall.
Yeah, he's more like Hooper.
He's like Austin Hooper. Yeah. We lost Amon-Ra St. Brown this week. Concussion. He's day-to-day.
Concussion that wasn't a concussion. This was like a weird one.
It was.
Where it was something I can't remember. They were talking about on the radio, and I didn't understand. I never heard the word before, but they have like a new protocol after the Tua stuff where you can fail something and still pass the concussion protocol, but be out with a concussion. And I can't remember the name of the word. That's apparently what happened to Amon-Ra St. Brown. So he didn't have a legitimate concussion. And it's easier to get back into action when it's one of these. It's like a pre-concussion. I can't remember the word of it.
And the Lions desperately need him. Their offense has looked pretty anemic the past couple of weeks without him in the offense.
And I think they even came out and said he did not have a concussion. So like he'll be on the fast track to get back. So hopefully he does get back.
Interesting to watch because Jameson Williams is not too far away as well. Yeah. So he should be coming back in this offense.
I did have a team this week that literally had Amon-Ra St. Brown, David Njoku, Mike Williams, and Breece Hall on it. All of them got hurt like during the week.
This was called like the kick in the nuts.
Yeah, it took an L.
Yeah,
took an L.
It's seasons change that quickly. When it's why you fight so hard even at this point if you think you have a chance to make it. And you just don't bail so quickly because you don't know what teams can falter because it's a Breece Hall away or a Mike Williams away from just not being able to win.
Look at last year, Christian McCaffrey and Derrick Henry, the top 2 guys at this point in the year. You didn't get them the rest of the year.
This has been such a weird, like honest to God, like the weirdest year. I feel like there's a couple of teams where I thought I'd be doing better, but I look at the rest of the league and I feel like no one's got a good score. Yeah. Like no one in my league is pulling away.
Dominating.
So even though I'm not doing well, I'm still in contention in some of these leagues. And I'm like, but do I want to buy somebody right now or or do I just sit back and wait to see what happens?
I'm waiting as long as I can this year.
I really am waiting. I'm going to push off trading for guys or making a push to see what happens in the next few weeks just because my team could, the bottom, like 1 or 2 more injuries on my team, the bottom could drop out, or I could get some of these guys back and just steamroll through because a couple of injuries happen somewhere else in the league. So it is a weird year.
It's like overall fantasy football production is down.
Yeah.
Yes.
The quarterback play is down drastically, very drastically. Some of the high end guys that we're used to seeing performing, like Tom Brady,
Aaron
Rodgers, not
Russell
playing
Wilson.
well. Russell Wilson.
Derek Carr was like a guy that was relied on a little bit, I feel like, the past few years. And him and Kirk Cousins, where the heck have they been?
Even Herbert has not been.
Well, he's had the rib. I mean, he's had the injury.
He has, but still, it's been rough.
But Derek Carr and
Kirk Cousins.
Kirk Cousins.
Matt Stafford.
Those two guys, they switched offense coordinators, and we thought good things were going to happen, and instead the opposite. So
yeah, Stafford's down.
Odd.
Stafford's
way down.
These quarterbacks that are older that aren't producing, influxed with these last couple of draft classes, the quarterbacks that haven't really established themselves at all. There's no. And this is why we have to be careful when we get so blessed with these guys that have come in, like Justin Herbert's that come in like the world on fire, where for the most case for quarterbacks, they do take time. Like a lot of these players take time. We've said that before that we've been so spoiled with these last couple of draft classes, right? Where they come in and like,
the receivers have done that
right away. Wide receiver 1, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, and like Usually this takes 2 to 3 years. And now we're like right back to like everything's down because like the NFL works off the quarterback. Like,
Sure.
So the quarterbacks are down big time.
Mm-hmm.
So everything else is kind of down too.
And even though the receivers early, those rookies were playing well, all of their numbers, with the exception of Chris Olave, all of their numbers are down as well.
Disappeared. And we're going to talk about like Drake London here in a little bit too, but like it's opened a lot of buy windows.
It has.
For a lot of people.
It's very interesting.
So it is interesting. Before a couple more injuries, DK Metcalf knee injury, MRI negative, ACL tear on the ACL tear. So he's week to week too, but same thing. I heard it was like kind of like his patella. Was that?
Yeah,
no, that was
Pete Carroll was very non-committal. They're like, oh, so they're,
He made it sound like he wasn't ruling him out this week.
well, DK apparently really
ridiculous.
wants to play this week. Pete Carroll was kind of like, we'll see. Like, I don't think he plays this week.
Pete Carroll sees every injury with the rose-colored
He
glasses
does.
on.
He
so
does.
for him to say we'll see is kind of like there's no way in heck he's playing
Yeah.
because he is a usually
Which will
half
be-
glass full type.
Which will be interesting because this kind of similar to the Lions, the Saints offense, or not the Saints, the Seattle offense has been incredible this year.
Yeah.
But what happens if one or two of these key guys get injured?
Right.
I'm curious to see, can they still keep up this level of
Can they-
production?
Will Geno Smith come back down
Yeah.
to earth?
Or will the
without-
wheels start falling off? It'll be really interesting to see.
Or is it really going to become that much more run heavy? So PJ Walker.
PJ Walker.
PJ Walker.
One of the Walkers.
Yeah, Walker.
Luke Skywalker. Somebody.
Jesus.
Larry Walker. Rockies.
What is
Walker,
what's the-
Texas Ranger. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Whatever. Forget it. We'll see how that does adapt with DK back off the field for a week.
One more bigger injury was Daniel Bellinger fractured his eye socket and septum. He needs surgery. He's gonna be out for indefinitely, which kind of stinks because he was kind of like leading away.
He's looking good.
There was some speculation that he might be able to come back this year.
I read that as well.
So
With an eye patch?
No, I mean
that would be cool.
That
though.
would be sweet. Probably a visor. This is like a more common injury in basketball because guys get elbowed in the face and nose area and stuff like that. And that's when you see the guy wearing the big mask, the big face mask and all that kind of stuff, looking like he's about to jump out of somebody on like Halloween night or something. But Daniel Bellinger, he might be able to come back. It depends on, I guess, the severity of everything going on once they get in there for surgery. But he'll likely have to wear a visor, and that's fine.
And I want to go back to Bellinger just because of the team he's on real quick. But before, obviously, Chuba Hubbard, ankle sprain to be determined. So we what's going on with him. And then Alan Lazard, his shoulder, see what's going on with him. Going back to Daniel Bellinger and the Giants, there's two things I want to hit on here. One, I have a bye.
Ooh, is this the sleeper buy of the week?
It's not my sleeper buy of the week.
Oh, okay. All right.
This is just a regular
It's
old.
just a regular buy.
Bye.
This is an awake buy of the week.
You know what? Let's make it my sleeper buy of the week. And
Oh,
I'll do my
hey,
other
we're
buy.
back.
I'll do my other buy. I'll just put it on the Nerd Herd Show.
All right, sounds
Let's
good.
do this. So my sleeper buy of the week presented by Sleeper, the number one host and platform out in fantasy football today. Check them out, Sleeper. Download their app today. My sleeper buy of the week is not a big flashy buy. And, I've talked about this for multiple years as well. Like, so many people look for the flashy buy when they're contenders. It's like sometimes just picking up these small trades, that you could build on and acquire these assets that help you win a ship. And my buy of the week is going to be Darius Slayton.
Yeah.
Wide receiver of the Giants. With Daniel Bellinger going down with the eye, like he's been a really good target for Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is playing absolutely fantastic right now. I don't know how they don't re-sign him or don't franchise him because he is playing lights out. I mean, he had one of his best fantasy games of all time this past week. Ran for over 100 yards for the first time. Passed up Jalen Hurts.
Did trip again, though.
He did.
There were people around him this time. It wasn't wide
It was
open.
a little better.
It was like navigating some traffic.
He's so fast. But just sometimes trips.
He's sometimes too fast for his own legs.
Anyway, continue. Sorry.
He's very athletic. So when we talked about when he came out, I became president of the fan club. I moved down to treasurer. But I'm still in the office. But he had his fourth multi-touchdown game of the year, which is really good. So Daniel Jones putting together. Brian Dable's obviously putting together. The run game of Saquon Barkley is looking fantastic.
Beautiful. Chef's kiss.
So with Bellinger going down and no real weapons behind him, with Kenny Galladay experiment has been a complete bust. Kadarius Toney is
he even
the
active
kennel.
anymore? Have they had him?
I'm saying he's hurt.
Yeah, he's hurt. Quotation marks.
Yeah, no, he's hurt.
So right now, if you look at Darius Slayton, my buy of the week is he's somebody over these last couple of weeks, 3 to be specific, he's put some pretty good games there. If you go back to week 5, he's been wide receiver 34 overall. Now, is that a great wide receiver? No, but it's a wide receiver 3.
Absolutely.
So, and with this Bellinger news and no other weapons really around him, and this Giants offense taking shape, I expect that to continue, and he continues to give you wide receiver 3 numbers. Darius Slayton's not costing you anything right now, and he's somebody you can put in your flex spot or your wide receiver 3 spot, or even better, a bye week filler, right? He's a great player to have right now to fill those spots, your flex, your wide receiver 3. Maybe you got Mike Williams, right, or DK Metcalf, and you're like, I'm a contender. I can't fall back now. Maybe you're in the 5th spot of your league. I can't fall back. I think if you're looking for a real cheap ad, right? Because everybody always goes, who can I add? Who are the big names? I think you probably get Darius Slayton for like a 3rd and a 4th, right? Like someone on those lines.
Easily.
So right now, that's my buy of the week because he has found his way to be the Giants' number 1 wide receiver.
I remember I loved him coming out as a rookie. He was like one of those guys that I was always talking about. And he had he had 8 touchdowns as a rookie. Him and Daniel Jones built up good chemistry, and then the Giants got cute, and they just tried to get all of these other wide receiver assets and Galladay and Tony and now Robinson, who's actually played. Wan'Dale Robinson's played well. Mm-hmm. But the guy he's always had chemistry with has been Slayton, and they're now just kind of coming back around to that. So especially in this offense, I think that's a great buy.
Absolutely great buy. Love the touchdown pass. I mean, beautiful pass right over his shoulder. Slayton had great separation too. He's
fast.
Yeah, he's
very
super fast. So not sure, I guess, where things went off the rails, or why he got in a doghouse, or why he got mothballed. But it looks like he's reemerging. So, dude, this is his 4th year in the league or something like that.
4th year, yep.
So it seems like he's been around longer because he's had such like a full circle type of thing happen already. But it looks like he's coming back around.
He was one of those players when they drafted Wan'Dale Robinson in the 2nd round. They had Kenny Galladay. They had Kadarius Toney from the 1st round. I was like, oh, man, he's kind of the kind of wide receiver I hope the Browns could go get, right?
Speed guy.
They needed somebody like that to stretch the field. It didn't happen, but he was on my radar. I'm like, oh, it'd be a nice pickup if we can get him. So that's my buy. That's my sleeper buy of the week. Darius Slayton, I think, is a fantastic ad. Let's talk about the Christian McCaffrey trade. Here we are.
Before we do that, let's talk about Prediction Strike.
Oh, we got to talk about our friends.
We do. We got to talk about Prediction Strike real quick. If you had Darius Slayton shares, they were probably at like 1 cent, 2 cents. I don't know exactly what they were, but they're obviously going up. And that's what you want to do at Prediction Strike. You want to predict who's going to break out. You want to predict who's going to start ascending, what players are going to start doing better. DJ Moore, all those DJ Moore shares, I refuse to sell like at bottom prices. He actually had a good week this week, finally. So tiny uptick in those shares. Hopefully PJ Walker can lead me to the promised land there. But that's what you get to do at Prediction Strike.
PJ Walker.
Huh?
PJ Walker.
The Walking Dead. That's what you can do over at Prediction Strike. You can buy, sell shares of players. Best of all, if you go to their beautiful app or predictionstrike.com, enter the promo code Dynasty. You get a free share of a player. That's right. Promo code Dynasty, predictionstrike.com. All right, back to CMC.
All right, Christian McCaffrey dealt to the 49ers. How does this affect his dynasty value, Garrett?
So at first I thought I was in the minority, but I've kind of seen people all over the map on this. I didn't think it really changed much. I think he was already considered a top 5 running back for dynasty purposes, a top 5 running back for redraft purposes. He is probably still going to be a top 5 back. I don't think he gets maybe quite the volume that he got before, but I think he's going to be much more efficient because of better play calling, better players. So maybe we see like a rise of like a point or a 1.5 per game. But I think overall, I think his value is about the same. It didn't really move much for me.
Yeah, I think it's a better fit for him, and we're going to an offense that's now a legit contender. Much better weapons around him to draw the coverage away from him. Guys like Debo, Kittle, and Ayuk really should open things up for him. Definitely, if you could get packages with him and Debo in the backfield at the same time, and then neither of them get a handoff, and they both split wide. Like one of those guys will be covered by should be covered by a linebacker and should be open, right? Like every single time. That should be really good opportunity for like dynasty success.
That's how I see it long term. I think it's going to take a few weeks to build out that package because this is obviously an in-season type of thing. And Kyle hasn't had any of these plays drawn up, and Christian doesn't know the playbook, from me, like I know as much of the playbook as he did a week ago. So, I mean, it's going to be one of those things where he's going to have to adjust. And I think as the season goes along, I think his package is just going to keep growing.
Cialis.
And expanding.
They've dumped Cialis in the bay, folks. Here we go. So, I mean, obviously, he's going to acclimate a little bit there.
Like my mind knew what Rich was going to say if I said what I was going to say.
You're doing hand gestures too over here. You're like starting small and you're going like this and like
package.
I have a whole bunch of ED ads popping on my phone next time I look at them for sure now. Yeah, I don't think it hurts his dynasty value. I think if anything, it helps maintain it because you're no longer worried about a poor offensive line. You're no longer worried about terrible quarterback play,
right.
Stacking the box, just DJ Moore to offset. That's it. So it should help him. They gave up a decent amount of draft capital. Like he's not going anywhere. They're going to pay his salary. He is there for the long term. I think it's good news that we consistently loved the pass catch and running back in San Francisco. They've always shown to be a value there for the 49ers. I think Kyle Shanahan will get the best of Christian McCaffrey. I kind of hope, it won't work that way, but I hope Jimmy Garoppolo could just somehow stay there, man. Well, and Trey Lance doesn't ruin that for him.
Yeah, I hear you there.
That's my biggest concern about Christian McCaffrey long term. For me, if this pans out at the end of the year, Christian McCaffrey's running hot. I'm probably selling. I have 2 Chris McCaffrey shares. I'm selling for the most I can get. I would be really worried about Trey Lance.
Have you seen all the Mac Jones to San Francisco? Everyone calling for that on
Calling
Twitter?
for that because that's who we wanted. This is not based on good analysis necessarily, but it did pain me a tiny bit to see that the team that has had so many problems with injuries
at the running back position
traded for one of the most injury-prone running backs we have.
He said, he's like, "What are you excited about?" He's like the guy who hasn't played in the last 2 years to literally the biggest wheel of running back spitter out.
I know it's just bad luck.
Yeah.
But it still
feels, or is it usage, or is maybe
it's their training staff, the way that they prepare the players.
I don't know. Dump all the Cialis in the bay. Everybody's coming out stronger.
Yeah, I mean your package will no doubt grow.
He'll be a firm player
between him and Jimmy G. I mean, it's 2 good-looking guys right there.
How do you want to firm up the bones?
You know how to do
Dump it in the bay. Yeah, so I mean, I think his value stays exactly the same. I would be looking to sell after this offseason, though, because Trey Lance. It would worry me.
What about his direct backups, Elijah Mitchell and obviously Jeff Wilson, who's there right now? Do you try to handcuff them if you are a CMC owner? Do you try to go out and acquire one of those guys on the cheap right now? What are you guys doing with those guys?
They're like Rice-A-Roni. It's the San Francisco way. You always get all of them. If you got one, you get them all.
I have 5 San Francisco running backs. I still have Trey Sermon just because. No, I do. I think if you're able to get him inexpensively, don't pay an arm and a leg to get him. But if you can get him on the cheap, Jeff Wilson is the one that's interesting to me because, granted, Christian McCaffrey is a special talent. They paid a ton for him, so I'm not saying this will happen. But traditionally, we have seen Jeff Wilson be the guy around the goal line. I am curious to see. I still think Christian McCaffrey will get some of those. But does he get all of them? Or will they use Jeff Wilson sometimes?
Will they lose Elijah Mitchell when he comes back?
So that was the other part of all of this that made me say, yes, he'll be more efficient with his touches. There'll be better plays. But there was enough just small details like that. Kyle Shanahan's a good coach and a smart guy. He might have certain things that he likes in certain scenarios that might not be Christian McCaffrey. So I'm not saying it will happen, but those are the small, tiny things that keep me from saying without a doubt, RB1, the guy. Those are the things that keep me back.
If he's 70% usage, I'm all in.
So I'm one of these people that had Elijah Mitchell, went out and got Jeff Wilson end of last year, and I've been really happy because I've just had Jeff Wilson to be able to ride out throughout until now, and now I'm wondering in my head do I go out and trade both of those guys to the guy who has CMC and just see what I can get, or do I ride him out and wait for CMC to get injured and then I'm right back on the horse again with both these guys? So that's where I'm kind of I
think that would go to contender rebuild. If you're more of a rebuild, see if you can get a second for both of them together.
Right.
If not, if you're a contender, I'm holding because I love having other people's backups just in case, because those are great for playoff time.
They are great for playoff time, and that's what my plan is. I'm going to hold them because that was one of the leagues where I'm not doing as well as I should have been doing, but across the league, everyone's doing poor.
Gotcha.
So speaking of poor, let's end the show on this last note. Matt Ryan benched. He got stuck in the La Brea tar pits with the rest of the dinosaurs. He ain't coming out. He ain't playing again. They put in Sam Ehlinger, and it's really interesting for me here on Ehlinger. Like, I think he's a good buy in Superflex leagues. Like, I'd go out there and offer a third immediately for Sam Ehlinger. This is a guy who looked really good in the preseason, can use his legs, rush for over 70 yards in the preseason, looked pretty accurate. We were talking about
doesn't have the big arm.
Doesn't have the big arm,
right.
But some really good weapons around him. And I think there's a chance here. There's a chance. Again, it's just a chance that this is a contending team. They're like a game out of the division or whatnot. And this isn't a move just to make a move. Like, they're looking for a player that to put them in the best position to win now. And they also have Nick Foles on that roster. You have to remember that. They have Nick Foles on the roster. And Sam Ehlinger looked really good in the preseason.
He did.
Probably to the point where, like, they're like, wow, we should start Sam Ehlinger, but we're paying all this guaranteed money to Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan's guaranteed like $13 million next year. But besides all that,
7-13.
7 or 13. I can't remember what it is. It's like 7 or 13. It's
okay.
weird.
7-13.
It's minimum $7 million. It's guaranteed.
I know after June 1st, they can cut him, or if they can trade him, not cut him. If they can trade him after June 1st,
splits it.
It's like $29 million off the books. It's something ridiculous like that. The problem is no one's going to want to trade for that.
No one's going to trade for that or the player at this point. I mean, He looks washed.
So I think Ehlinger, if he can show enough, and he's got a good team around him, right? A decent offensive line, a good running game, 3 solid weapons in the passing game. Paris Campbell looked great this past week. Alec Pierce, and of course Michael Pittman Jr. All Ehlinger has to do on this team is keep them close to the playoffs, towards that like late round team picks, and keep them away from that quarterback draft pick. And there's a chance that he could be the next Davis Mills and be the quarterback going into 2023. And he probably showed him enough in preseason. We're like, wow, this is really close. Like, we should start Sam. We're going to go with Matt Ryan. He's the veteran who we trade for them to pull the plug this quickly at him. And I know Irsay had some stay in it as well, but there's something there for them putting Ehlinger in now.
The one thing I'm worried about, not for Ehlinger, but for Jonathan Taylor, is similar to what I've talked about with Najee Harris and different guys like that. When you have that older quarterback like Matt Ryan, he's going to check it down quite a bit. And we saw Jonathan Taylor, when healthy, he was getting quite a few receptions. Even though he hadn't been super effective this year, he had gotten quite a few receptions. I think he had like 6 or something like that last week. I don't know how that's going to go with Ehlinger. I don't know that they're going to be checking it down as much. That might be a small downtick in points for a guy like Jonathan Taylor. So something to keep an eye on.
And he can move enough that he might just escape the pocket altogether.
Exactly. They usually either prefer to throw it or run it.
And I wanted to quickly check this because I do remember I heard it on the radio, but I hadn't heard it anywhere else. Apparently, he did have a separated shoulder, grade 2 shoulder separation. Matt Ryan. That's kind of led to all this.
The coach said it wouldn't have made a difference. They weren't going to play him without the shoulder injury. They came out and said that.
Right, but I mean, it doesn't help, I guess, that the dude can't throw the ball. So I mean, you separate your throwing shoulder, you're gonna have a pretty difficult time. So depending on when he did that during the game, it could have led to some of his inefficiencies, at least this past
Florio
week.
said no matter what happens, even if Ehlinger gets hurt, Matt Ryan will never play a snap again because they don't want to pay him. And if he gets hurt, like his cap number goes up guaranteed like way more. So they said Florio reported today
he already did get hurt.
He'll never play again for the Colts. So it's interesting. What's the most you'd pay for Ehlinger in a Superflex league? I said a third.
I didn't love the prospect, to be honest, coming out. I know he did well in the preseason, and they're going to try to save their season with him. I'm not like a big believer in him. I probably wouldn't go more than a fourth. That's just me.
I would definitely give a third, but I would give a third for any quarterback that has a chance to start in Superflex.
Yeah. But I mean, is he starting 7 games? Is he starting the rest of the season? Is he starting next year?
It's tough to say, but I think anyone that has a chance to be the guy, I think is worth the risk. Like, would I say it's likely he ends up being the guy? Probably not. I would say it's more like 20% that he ends up being the guy, but
20% is good odds.
20% is good enough for me to give a third.
Here's why I'd pay a third. You could have done the same thing when Davis Mills got start you could have probably got Davis Mills for a third in Superflex leagues.
But I did like that talent.
At the end of the year, you could have got a 22 first for Davis Mills. Now, same thing with Ellinger. Like if I buy him for a third, which is probably what you can get him for right now, if he shows just enough there, at the worst, I think, then all of a sudden you flip him at some point in the year for a second. Like the value would be there. Or you just hold on, you hope he turns to Davis Mills, and maybe at some point you could package him with someone else and get a first out of it as well. I think he's young enough.
If he bombs, though, you
just
lit a third round draft pick on. And not that a third round draft pick's all that.
It's a one pick I have no problem lighting on fire.
Yeah, you're right.
You know what I mean?
It doesn't really
it's James Robinson.
It's a third round draft pick. You're right.
So I think the upside's too good on a quarterback
it's just worth
like that.
the risk.
And what the thing is, I like the weapons around him so much as well.
I'm worried about the weapons around him because I have one on my team. Are you guys worried at all about the weapons?
Michael Pittman Jr.?
Yeah, like Michael Pittman Jr.?
A little bit.
Receiver.
A little bit, but I think there will be enough targets there. I don't think they're a great team. I think they're going to be in a lot of close games. I don't think they're going to be running the clock out on a lot of teams. So I think they're still going to be throwing later in games, needing to be in it. So I still think there'll be enough targets to go around. I would worry more. I don't worry as much about Michael Pittman Jr. I do worry a little more about the ancillary pieces like Pearson and Campbell. Those would be the ones that I would worry about a little bit more. But even there,
what happened to this offensive line?
That's the thing. The offensive line has not been good. And this was one of the best offensive lines in football. And they could not get it done for Matt Ryan. And Matt Ryan's a guy that needed a little bit more time.
Yeah, he was.
So, but we'll see. A lot of young quarterbacks need that kind of time too.
I know. That's what I'm worried about.
So we'll see.
All righty. Anything else?
No, that's it. Let's jump into this Nerd Show.
All right. Sounds good. Adios.